Most people think $50,000 means you finally made it. No, $50,000 means the game finally stops laughing directly in your face. You're not rich yet, but your money has started applying for a job. Most people hear $50,000 and immediately imagine some dramatic life upgrade. Better apartment, better car, better vacation, maybe a watch so shiny it looks like it has its own credit score. But that is exactly why this milestone is so dangerous. Because $50,000 is not the point where you become rich. It is the point where your money finally becomes useful enough to either build your future or quietly finance a much nicer version of the same old bad habits. And that is the weird part about this number. $50,000 does not feel like a fantasy. It does not feel unreachable like a million. It does not feel tiny like 500. It sits in this strange middle zone where it is big enough to change your options, but small enough to disappear if you start acting like it's bigger than it is. It is not retirement money. It is not private jet money. It is not quit your job and become a philosopher on a beach money. Please do not become the guy who saves $50,000 and suddenly starts talking about escaping the matrix while ordering a $12 smoothie. But it is serious money, very serious. Because at this level, money starts working differently. Below $10,000, most people are still playing defense. They're trying to avoid overdrafts, avoid panic, avoid the financial horror movie where the car makes a noise and suddenly the whole budget needs therapy. At $20,000, you start getting breathing room. You can handle some hits. You can make calmer decisions. But at $50,000, the game changes again. Now your money is not just a cushion. It can become a machine. And in this video, I want to explain why this milestone matters so much, why it feels different psychologically, why most people accidentally waste it, and what you should actually do when you reach it so that $50,000 becomes the start of wealth instead of the start of lifestyle inflation wearing nice shoes. Because here is the first open loop. The biggest benefit of $50,000 is not what it can buy, it is what it can prevent. The second thing is, this is often the first number where compound growth starts looking like real money instead of motivational math on a poster. And third, there is one mistake people make at this level that can send them right back to zero while they still feel like they are winning. So let's start with the obvious question. Why $50,000? Why not $30,000? Why not $100,000? Why does this number feel different? Because $50,000 is usually the first milestone where you have enough money to separate your life into categories. Before this, all your money often has one job: survive. Rent, food, bills, debt, emergencies, repeat. The money comes in, the money goes out, and your bank account looks like it is doing cardio. But once you reach $50,000, you can finally stop asking, "Can I survive this month?" and start asking, "How should this money be structured?" That word matters, structured. Poor money has no structure, it just reacts. The tire goes flat, money reacts. Rent goes up, money reacts. A friend invites you somewhere, money panics in the corner. But wealth-building money is organized. Some protects you, some grows, some waits for opportunity, some pays down risk, some buys assets. At $50,000, you can finally give your money different jobs instead of forcing every dollar to run around like an underpaid employee doing everything. And that is the first big shift. You are no longer just collecting money. You are managing a small financial system. Now, let me be clear. $50,000 is not enough to make you untouchable. Life can absolutely still humble you. Life has a black belt in humbling people. Medical bills, family emergencies, job loss, business problems, bad investments, legal issues, moving costs. Money can go very fast when life starts acting spicy. So this number does not mean you are safe forever. It means you finally have enough room to build safety properly. Think of it like this. If you have $500 saved, every problem feels like a threat. If your phone breaks, that is a financial event. If your car needs a repair, that is a crisis. If your income gets delayed, suddenly you are calculating whether noodles can be a personality. But with $50,000, the same problems hit differently. A $700. Repair is annoying, not devastating. A delayed paycheck is inconvenient, not terrifying. A job loss is serious, but not immediate financial freefall. That changes how you think. And how you think changes how you behave. When you have no money, you make decisions under pressure. You accept bad deals. You stay in bad jobs longer than you should. You borrow at ugly rates. You sell things at bad times. You say yes when you should say no. You choose speed over strategy because survival does not care about your 5-year plan. Survival says, fix this today. And survival is loud. But $50,000 turns the volume down. Suddenly, you can negotiate. You can wait. You can walk away. You can move cities if you need to. You can take a better job with a short-term pay delay. You can leave a toxic workplace without immediately wondering if your bank account is going to start coughing blood. That is not just money. That is optionality. And optionality is one of the most underrated forms of wealth. A lot of people think wealth means buying more stuff. But the first real form of wealth is being less trapped. When you have $50,000, you may still drive the same car, wear the same clothes, and live in the same apartment. But inside your life, something has changed. You have more choices. You have more time. You have more room to think. And sometimes, the difference between a good financial decision and a terrible one is simply having enough money to not panic. Now, let's talk about the part where money starts working. At small numbers, investment returns feel almost insulting. If you have $500 invested and it grows by 7%, that is $35. Great. Congratulations. Your money bought you dinner, maybe. If you have $5,000 and it grows by 7%, that is $350. Nice, but not life-changing. You are not calling your boss and saying, "I'm retiring, Brad. My index fund just bought me half a couch." But at $50,000, the same percentage starts to feel different. A 5% return is $2,500 in a year. A 7% return is $3,500 in a year. An 8% return is $4,000 in a year. These are not guaranteed numbers. They are examples. Markets move. Interest rates change. Nothing is smooth. But the point is simple. The same percentage becomes more meaningful when the base is larger. This is when people finally understand that money has weight. Not physical weight, unless you keep it in coins like a cartoon villain. I mean financial weight. A 7% return on $500 is a small reward. A 7% return on $50,000 is a small employee. It is not a full-time employee yet. It is more like a part-time intern who sometimes shows up late and occasionally loses money during market downturns. But still, your money is doing something. And this is where the mindset changes from, "I need to earn every dollar myself," to "my assets can start helping me." That is a huge psychological shift, because when you only have income, you are the engine. You stop, everything stops. You get sick, money slows down. You lose the job, money stops. But when you start building assets, even small ones, you begin creating a second engine. At $50,000, that second engine is not powerful enough to carry you, but it is finally loud enough to hear. And hearing it matters. Because once you see $50,000 producing $2,000, $3,000, or $4,000 in potential annual growth, you start thinking differently about the next $10,000. Saving another $10,000 no longer feels like just stacking cash in a corner. It feels like adding fuel to a machine. Your money starts becoming a base that future money grows from. This is the beginning of the compounding mindset. Compound interest is basically when your money earns money, and then that earned money also starts earning money. Investor.gov explains compound interest as earning interest on interest, and its calculator is designed to show how invested money can grow over time. And here's the funny part. Compound growth is extremely boring in the beginning. It looks like nothing. It feels like watching paint dry, except the paint occasionally goes down 18% and makes you question your personality. But once the base gets bigger, the changes become visible. Not predictable, not guaranteed, but visible. $50,000 is often the first time people can feel that. But this is also where the dangerous part begins. Because the moment people hit $50,000, many of them start feeling like they have made it. And the human brain, being the dramatic little creature that it is, starts looking for a reward. You worked hard, you sacrificed, you said no to things, you avoided unnecessary spending, you built the number. And now your brain says, "Okay, lovely, Time to upgrade the lifestyle. A little upgrade is fine. You are allowed to enjoy life. This is not a channel where I tell you to live under a staircase, eating plain rice until age 72. But the problem is when $50,000 turns from a foundation into permission. Permission to buy the car. Permission to move into the expensive apartment. Permission to start dressing like every sidewalk is a runway. Permission to take the vacation you deserve. The furniture you deserve. The phone upgrade you deserve. And suddenly, the milestone becomes a shopping excuse with better branding. This is the $50,000 trap. At $5,000, people know they are not rich. At $10,000, they still feel cautious. But at $50,000, they start feeling financially mature enough to make immature decisions confidently. That is a very specific danger. You no longer feel broke, so you stop acting carefully. But you are not wealthy enough to absorb repeated bad choices. So you are in the most dangerous emotional zone. Comfortable, but not actually secure. This is why $50,000 must be treated as a launch pad, not a trophy. A trophy sits on a shelf. A launch pad sends something upward. If you treat $50,000 like proof that you can now spend more, it will shrink. If you treat it like the first serious base of your wealth machine, it can start changing your future. So what should actually happen when you reach $50,000? First, you need to protect the floor. Before you get fancy, before you start investing aggressively, before you start talking about rental properties, dividend income, crypto cycles, side hustles, or any other topic that makes finance people suddenly lean forward like meerkats, protect the floor. That means keeping a proper emergency fund. Not all $50,000 in cash necessarily, but enough cash to survive real life. For most people, that means several months of essential expenses. The exact number depends on your life. If you have stable income, low expenses, no dependents, and flexible housing, you may need less. If you have family responsibilities, unstable income, medical costs, business risk, or one of those cars that starts making expensive sounds when the weather changes, you may need more. The point is not to copy someone else's number. The point is to build a buffer that stops normal life from turning into debt. Because here's what people forget. The best investment strategy in the world can still get wrecked if you have no emergency cash. If every emergency forces you to sell investments, use credit cards, or borrow money, your beautiful plan becomes fragile. And fragile plans do not survive real life. They survive spreadsheets. Real life does not care about your spreadsheet. Real life spills coffee on your spreadsheet and then sends you a bill. So part of the $50,000 should usually stay boring. Cash, high-yield savings, money market, short-term safe instruments, whatever is appropriate in your country and banking system. Boring money is not wasted money. Boring money is the shock absorber that keeps your growth money from being interrupted. And yes, cash loses buying power over time when inflation rises. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics says its CPI inflation calculator uses CPI-U data to show changes in the prices of goods and services purchased by urban households. So no, you do not want your entire life savings sitting in cash forever. But you also do not want every dollar invested so aggressively that one emergency forces you to sell at the worst possible time. This is the balance. Cash protects. Assets grow. You need both. Second, if you have high-interest debt, the $50,000 milestone should make you very honest. Because there is no point building a beautiful investment portfolio while expensive debt is chewing through the back door like a financial termite. If you have credit card debt at a high interest rate, personal loans with ugly terms, payday loans, or any debt that grows faster than your realistic investment returns, paying it down can be one of the strongest returns you get. And I know paying off debt does not feel exciting. Nobody posts a dramatic Instagram photo holding a receipt that says, "I reduced my outstanding balance." It does not sparkle. It does not make you look like an investor. But eliminating high-interest debt is powerful because it removes a guaranteed drag from your life. Debt repayment is not just math. It is removing a monthly leak. At $50,000, the question becomes, is this money better used to grow, or is it better used to stop damage? Sometimes the best move is not adding speed. Sometimes the best move is fixing the hole in the boat. Third, start building the growth engine. Once the floor is protected and destructive debt is handled, this is where $50,000 starts becoming interesting, because now you can invest with a little more seriousness. Not recklessness, seriousness. This might mean broad market index funds, retirement accounts, tax-advantaged accounts if your country offers them, a diversified portfolio, Maybe a business investment if you actually understand the business. Maybe education that increases your earning power. Maybe a small opportunity fund for future assets. The exact tools depend on your country, income, goals, taxes, and risk tolerance. But the principle is universal. Some part of your money should be assigned to growth. Because if your $50,000 only sits there, it protects you, but it does not fully transform you. Protection is step one, growth is step two, and the magic happens when income keeps feeding the growth engine, while the growth engine slowly starts feeding itself. Let's make it simple. Imagine you keep $20,000 as your emergency and stability fund. Then maybe $25,000 is invested for long-term growth. Then $5,000 is kept as an opportunity or learning fund. I am not saying that exact split is perfect for everyone. It is just an example. A young single person with stable income may invest more. A parent with unstable income may keep more in cash. Someone with high-interest debt may use a large chunk to kill the debt first. The right split depends on your situation, but the habit is what matters. At $50,000, your money should not be one big pile. It should be a system. One bucket protects you, one bucket grows, one bucket gives you flexibility. That is when money starts working differently. Now let's talk about the opportunity bucket, because this is where things get interesting. Most people only think about money in two modes, spending or saving. But once you have $50,000, there is a third mode, positioning. Positioning means you are ready when a good opportunity appears. Maybe a career certification that can increase your income. Maybe moving to a better city. Maybe starting a small side business without going into debt. Maybe buying equipment. Maybe taking a temporary pay cut to enter a better field. Maybe investing when markets are down and everyone else is panicking. Maybe helping yourself say yes to something that has a long-term payoff. This is where money becomes strategic. A person with no savings cannot easily take advantage of opportunity. They are too busy surviving. A person with $50,000 has options. They can make moves. They can be patient. They can be selective. They can stop chasing every quick dollar and start choosing better long-term paths. That is one of the biggest hidden powers of this milestone. It lets you stop making decisions from desperation. And desperation is expensive. Desperation makes people accept terrible job offers. Desperation makes people take bad loans. Desperation makes people sell investments at the bottom. Desperation makes people start businesses with no runway and then panic when month 2 is not profitable. Desperation makes people stay stuck because every move feels too risky. $50,000 does not remove risk, but it gives you room to manage risk instead of being crushed by it. Now, here is another shift that happens at this level. Your mistakes become more expensive. When you have $500, your mistakes are usually small because there is not much to lose. Painful, yes, but small. When you have $50,000, one bad decision can cost you thousands. Chasing a bad investment, lending money to the wrong person, buying an overpriced car, joining a guaranteed returns scheme, starting a business with no plan, putting all your money into one asset because some guy with sunglasses on the internet said it was about to explode. At $50,000, you become visible to bad ideas. This is important. When you have no money, scams mostly ignore you. When you have money, suddenly everyone has an opportunity. A cousin has a business idea. A friend has a property deal. A stranger online has a course. Someone has a crypto project. Someone has a private investment. Someone has a no-risk return, which is usually the financial equivalent of a restaurant calling itself 100% clean in neon lights. Why are you saying it so loudly? You need filters. The first filter is simple. If you do not understand it, do not put serious money into it. Not because every complex thing is bad, but because confusion is where bad decisions hide. The second filter. If the return sounds high and the risk sounds low, someone is probably removing information from the conversation. The third filter. Never let one decision risk the whole base. The first $50,000 is too hard to build and too valuable to gamble. This milestone should make you more careful, not more arrogant, because $50,000 can become $100,000 faster than the first $50,000 was built, but only if you protect it from stupidity. And yes, stupidity is a financial category, very active, very liquid, available worldwide. Now let's talk about the jump from $50,000 to $100,000. This is where the compounding mindset gets even stronger. The first $10,000 is mostly discipline. The first $50,000 is discipline plus structure. The first $100,000 is where the machine begins to feel real. Because once you have $100,000 invested, Even normal market movement can mean thousands or tens of thousands in a year. Again, not guaranteed, sometimes up, sometimes down. But the base becomes powerful. So $50,000 is not the finish line. It is the halfway gate to the first truly serious wealth milestone. And this is why lifestyle inflation at $50,000 is so costly. You are right at the point where momentum could start working. If you keep your expenses controlled and continue investing, the next milestone can arrive faster. But if you upgrade everything, the machine slows down right before it starts becoming useful. That is the tragedy. People do the hard part, then reward themselves by destroying the system that got them there. They save aggressively for years. Then they hit a number. Then they increase rent, upgrade the car, add subscriptions, take bigger trips, start eating out more, buy nicer clothes. Nothing insane by itself, but together, the monthly burn rate rises. And once the burn rate rises, saving becomes harder. And once saving becomes harder, investing slows down. And once investing slows down, the $50,000 sits there like a trophy instead of becoming a launchpad. The lifestyle upgrade does not always happen dramatically. It happens quietly. One small, I deserve it at a time. And look, you do deserve to enjoy your life, but you also deserve not to be broke again. So the rule is not never upgrade. The rule is upgrade slower than your assets. Let your financial base grow faster than your lifestyle. If your income rises, do not let expenses swallow the whole raise. If your investments grow, do not immediately treat unrealized gains like shopping money. If you hit $50,000, celebrate a little, then get back to building. Because the real flex is not spending the milestone. The real flex is keeping the milestone and making it produce the next one. Now, another thing changes at $50,000. You start caring more about where money is held. At $5,000, people mostly care that the money exists. At $50,000, you need to care about safety, insurance, access, taxes, and risk. For example, in the United States, FDIC deposit insurance generally covers $250,000 per depositor per FDIC-insured bank for each ownership category. Other countries have their own systems and limits, so you need to check what applies where you live. The point is not that everyone should use the same account. The point is that larger money requires more intentional storage. You also need to think about liquidity. Money for emergencies should be accessible. Money for long-term investing can be less accessible. Money for near-term goals should not be thrown into volatile assets just because you want a higher return. If you need the money in 6 months for rent, relocation, tuition, or a business runway, that money should not be treated like a 30-year investment. This is the difference between being someone who has money and someone who manages money. At $50,000, you are practicing the skill set you will need at $100,000, $250,000, and beyond. The numbers get bigger, but the habits start here. Risk management, asset allocation, patience, tax awareness, cash flow, opportunity cost, emotional discipline. These sound like fancy finance words, but really they mean do not let your money sit randomly and hope it figures out its life. Money needs leadership, otherwise it joins bad company. Now let's make this practical. If I reached $50,000 and wanted to avoid ruining the milestone, I would ask 5 questions. Question 1. How many months of essential expenses do I have protected? Not lifestyle expenses, essential expenses. Rent or mortgage, food, utilities, insurance, transportation, minimum debt payments, basic family obligations. Not brunch, not vibes, not the streaming subscriptions you forgot you had. Essentials. Question 2. Do I have any high-interest debt attacking me? If yes, I would strongly consider using part of the money to remove that drag. Not always every dollar because you still need cash, but enough to stop the most expensive bleeding. Question 3. How much of this money is positioned for long-term growth? If the answer is none, I am too defensive. If the answer is all of it, I may be too exposed. The right answer depends on my life, but there should be a growth plan. Question 4. What upcoming big expenses could hit me in the next 1 to 3 years? Moving, wedding, education, business plans, family support, car replacement, medical needs. If money is needed soon, it should not be treated like long-term investment money. Question 5. What behavior got me here, and how do I protect that behavior? This might be the most important one. Because the habits that build $50,000 are more valuable than the $50,000 itself. The number is the result. The behavior is the engine. If you abandon the behavior, the number will eventually follow. That means you keep automatic saving. You keep investing regularly. You keep tracking major spending. You keep avoiding dumb debt. You keep living below your means. Not in a miserable way, in a controlled way. There is a difference between being cheap and being strategic. Cheap says, I refuse to spend money. Strategic says, I spend on purpose. At $50,000, purpose matters more. Because every dollar now has an opportunity cost. Spend $5,000 on a random upgrade, and you are not just losing $5,000. You are losing what that $5,000 could have become. Maybe it could have been invested. Maybe it could have protected your emergency fund. Maybe it could have paid down debt. Maybe it could have funded a skill that increases your income. This does not mean never spend. It means understand the trade. A person with no financial base often spends because money feels temporary anyway. A person building wealth spends with awareness because money has future power. And that is the deeper shift. At $50,000, money stops being only today's tool and becomes tomorrow's seed. Now, let's also be honest about income. For some people, saving $50,000 is extremely difficult. Income matters. Cost of living matters. Family responsibilities matter. Country matters. Currency matters. Health matters. Pretending everyone has the same starting line is fake motivation, and fake motivation is annoying. But the principle still works at different scales. Maybe in your country or life, the milestone is not exactly $50,000. Maybe it is $10,000. Maybe it is $20,000. Maybe it is $100,000. The number changes. The shift is the same. The shift happens when your money becomes large enough to do 3 jobs at once: protect, grow, and create options. That is the real milestone. Not the exact number, the function. When your savings can protect you from emergencies, when your investments can start generating noticeable growth, and when your cash position gives you the ability to make better decisions, you have crossed into a different financial stage. And once you reach that stage, the goal is not to look richer. The goal is to become harder to break. That is not as flashy, but it is much more powerful. Because most people are not financially destroyed by one giant mistake. They are weakened by 1,000 small ones. No emergency fund, too much car, too much rent, random debt, lifestyle inflation, no investing, panic decisions, bad deals, no plan. A little leak here, a little leak there, and eventually the whole bucket is empty while everyone is still wondering what happened. $50,000 gives you a chance to stop the leaks and start building the machine, but only if you respect it. So here is the cleanest way to think about it. The first $1,000 gives you breathing room. The first $10,000 gives you stability. The first $50,000 gives you leverage over your own life. Not leverage like borrowing money, leverage like options, time, calm, negotiation power, investment base, opportunity, the ability to say no, the ability to wait, the ability to think. And when you combine that with discipline, the money starts working differently because you start working differently. You stop reacting to every bill like it is an ambush. You stop treating every paycheck like a rescue helicopter. You stop making decisions from fear. You begin making decisions from strategy. That is the real change. Now, if you are not at $50,000 yet, do not let this discourage you. The lesson is not you are behind. The lesson is that there is a point where your money starts helping you more noticeably, and your job is to build toward that point one step at a time. First, stabilize, then save, then eliminate destructive debt, then invest, then repeat. Nothing magical, nothing glamorous, just consistent, boring action until the boring action becomes powerful. And if you are already at $50,000, do not get cocky. This is not the part where you start acting rich. This is the part where you become serious. Because the next move matters. This money can either become the foundation of your first $100,000, or it can become a very expensive memory called "that one time I had money." Please do not turn your milestone into a flashback. Protect the floor. Kill the leaks. build the growth engine, keep some opportunity cash, upgrade slowly, invest consistently, avoid stupid risks. And remember that the point of money is not to impress people who are not paying your bills. The point of money is to give your life more strength, more freedom, and more choices. So yes, $50,000 changes things, not because you are rich, because for the first time, your money is big enough to stand beside you and help push. And if you treat it properly, this is where your financial life stops being only about survival and starts becoming about momentum. That is the real milestone, not the number in the account. The moment your money stops just sitting there and starts quietly working for future you.